Hi, folks. Thanks for signing on to today's webinar. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. So thank you for your patience. We'll get started right around 3 o'clock. Hi, folks. We're going to give it just another minute, see if anyone else may be having a little trouble signing on. We'll get started in a few moments. Thank you. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started, and hopefully a few more folks find their way to us as I'm doing my introduction. I want to thank everybody for joining today, and good afternoon. My name is Veronica Buckwalter. I'm with Jobs for the Future and with the National Student Attendance Engagement and Success Center. Today's webinar is titled Don't Fade Away, Closing Your Success Mentor Program for the School Year. And before we begin, I'd just like to share some brief details about today's webinar. Today's webinar will last for approximately 60 minutes with time built in for questions. Everyone has been automatically placed on mute upon entry into the webinar, and only our panelists will be unmuted throughout the presentation. But please feel free at any point throughout the presentation to submit questions or comments using the chat function at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can submit those at any point in the presentation, and our presenter will be sort of pausing along the way to see if we have questions submitted, and we'll answer those as we go along. Today's webinar will be recorded. The recording and the slide deck will be made available to all registrants, and that will be posted to the National TA Center's temporary website. I'm going to post a link to that here and send it out to everybody. It should appear in your chat function right now. This is a website where we post all of our recorded webinars. Webinars from probably the last 18 months or so are available there if you want to take a look and access previous webinars. You can also register for future webinars on this website. We have webinars coming up on May 15th and May 23rd. So take a look at the webinar schedule and see if you might be interested in registering for a future webinar. Linda, can you go to the next slide for me, please? So today's webinar is one of a number being offered by the National Student Attendance Engagement and Success Center during 2018. This National Technical Assistance Center was launched in 2016 and is funded by the Department of Education's Office of Safe and Healthy Students. The mission of the center is to disseminate evidence-based practices and build and facilitate communities of practice to help students attend every day, be engaged in school, and succeed academically so that they graduate high school prepared for college, career, and civic life. Next slide, please. The two communities of practice referred to in the center's mission are focused on the 30 national My Brother's Keeper Success Mentor sites and the many school improvement grant and school improvement grant eligible schools throughout the country that are working to implement early warning systems programs to address chronic absenteeism. Unfortunately, we run into several unanticipated delays in launching our formal TA Center website, but we are pleased to announce that this site should be up and running by the end of this month. So hopefully by this time next month, we will be able to announce the launch of our full TA Center website. Until that time, you can absolutely access the temporary website, which is the link I just sent out, to access all of the recordings of webinars and announcement about events and other information happening at the center. So today's webinar is being presented by Linda Moskowski, the Knowledge Development Director at the Everyone Graduates Center at Johns Hopkins University. Linda has over 25 years of experience in professional development, design, and implementation, curriculum development and instructional design, and delivery of site-based technical support. Linda has served as facilitator of the Principals Network Community of Practice for the past 5 years, including the design of semi-annual conference convenings. A proven trainer in leadership development, she co-designed and co-instructs Turnaround Leadership for the Doctoral of Education program at Johns Hopkins University School of Education, facilitating synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities. Linda is also a certified cognitive coach. Linda, at this point, I'll go ahead and pass things over to you for you to get us started with today's presentation.
Thank you, Veronica. Thanks, everybody who joined. We're excited about the opportunity to have a conversation about how we might intentionally wrap up this year and prepare for launch in the fall. So if it would be all right, it would be great to know who is in our community today. So if you wouldn't mind and you would do me this honor, would you type your name and your role and your city or school or district in the chat?
And Linda, I'm not sure if in the chat there should be a box that informs you of who you're sending your chat to. I think it defaults to sending to the host, so you may have to change that to all attendees in order to send it to everybody so that everyone knows who's on the chat or who's on the webinar today.
So I think that would be true if I was sending, but I think what I'm doing is asking for participants if they would put in the chat. So Dontel, if you happen to get something that happens to be going just to you, then you could let us know. But all participants would be great. Oh, hi, Allison. Thanks for joining today from Colorado. Welcome.
Denise also responded. She is a program coordinator and Success Mentors TA provider.
Welcome, Denise. And Denise, where are you from?
Connecticut.
Connecticut, welcome. We also have Maria Waltemeyer from Baltimore, who is one of my colleagues. And while other people are responding, maybe we'll talk about what our purpose is for today. What I'm hoping we can do is have a dialogue or conversation. And that's really going to be about what might be the intentional gathering of information, and that we could talk about what kinds of information and from who, that would be useful to inform us from different perspectives about what's happening in our cities, our districts, our schools. And then after we do that, kind of consider what of those communications it would be useful to have in place and share in the fall when we're getting ready to launch. So it's really going to be a very interactive opportunity, and the more interactive, I think, the more purposeful it can be. So the first part we're going to talk about is what might be some information that would be valuable to gather. And you can see on the slide, I went to our old friend, Webster, the dictionary, because I think it really helps us to think about what does it mean when we gather something. And I really like this 2.2 where it points out that we are gathering information from scattered places or sources. And no matter where we may see ourselves in the system, there's always places to the left, to the right, to the front, to the back, that may have pieces of information or perspective that we don't. So I'm going to ask you again, if you don't mind, if you would enter in the chat box, when you think about information that it would be useful to gather between now and when your Success Mentor program wraps up, what initially comes to your mind? It can be anything, no wrong answers. Well, I think we'll think about a couple of the different layers that may be involved. From Denise, Denise is thinking about data, attendance behavior and academic data, interviews with mentors and mentees about what worked and what was a challenge during the year, meeting as a TA provider with the school to address the same, oh, I'm sorry, let me go down a little bit here, questions. And that sounds like somebody who's really given a lot of thought. Thank you for sharing those thoughts, Denise. They make a lot of sense. What about Letitia has shared any data that might show improvement? And let's see, I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay, we're going to leave that open, so please feel free to continue entering your thoughts. I guess one thing we're thinking about is capacity. What is current capacity? And in that current capacity, what can be done, or what would we like to have be done, and how might we use this gathering of information to help capacity? So when I think about district level capacity, because a lot of times in my work I have the privilege and opportunity to work with district captains or across multiple buildings. When you think about what impacts the capacity for a district, first and foremost you come to the district captain, right, the district coordinator. Is that district coordinator freed with time and space and structure to be able to do the role? And are they provided or able to engender strong school-based coordinators? So what helps our strong school-based coordinators? Well, buy-in from administrators and support from administrators, and school and community relationships. So another thing that impacts the district's capacity is the time and the structure and the resource to support building coordinators and to support the mentors and mentees, and the funding if necessary, autonomy if necessary, sponsorship if necessary, to orchestrate district-wide launches, activities, and partnerships. So if we thought about it in that realm of district capacity, what might they want to know from this year's implementation? that would help them with to support a strong opening implementation in the fall. And surely the things that have been mentioned, the data that has been mentioned, is definitely an aspect and important, but what else might they need to know or want to know that would help with a strong opening? What might they want to know, and what might you want them to know? Will you just pause for a minute? We're actually going to pause for a minute to give you a chance to reflect on that, and then would you put in the chat box your thoughts about that?
Hey, Linda, this is Veronica. I'm wondering, since we have such a small number of folks, we may be able to just make everyone panelists, and that way everyone can just unmute themselves to be able to speak. Would you rather do it that way?
Oh my goodness, that would be wonderful.
Okay, let's try that. Yeah, usually when we have a ton of people, we keep everyone on mute just because it's too much to manage. But we have a small number of folks, so we can try to make everyone panelists. We just want to make sure there's not a limit on the number of panelists we can add.
Hi, this is
Okay, looks like we got everybody in there.
Yep, everyone is officially a panelist and can speak when they're ready. And everyone has the power to mute yourself and unmute yourself.
Right. There's a button right next to your name. There should be a little microphone that appears that enables you to mute and unmute yourself. So we will just ask that when you do speak, remember to unmute yourself, but when you're finished, please remember to mute yourself so that we're not getting any background noise and everyone else has a chance to speak. Thanks so much.
Allison, do you mind saying hello so we can see if your mic works? Oh, no worries, Allison. You can keep using the chat. That's totally cool. Denise, do you mind saying hi so we can see if yours is live? And it's okay if, yeah. I know. Sometimes when I sign up for a webinar, I'm thinking I can be quiet and be doing my work while I'm listening to it, so I completely understand when you get on and it's like, what?
Hello.
Just remember too, folks, that your phone may be muted. So if you called in via your phone, just make sure that your phone is unmuted as well.
Hi, Denise. Do you have any thoughts about this district capacity question?
Can you hear me?
We can. It's exciting.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I didn't think you could. I'm sitting here in my earbuds. I'm sorry. Please repeat the question because I was so busy trying to get myself in audio.
I was wondering, do you have any thoughts when you think in your particular setting at district level?
Yep.
What are your thoughts about what people at the district level might want to know that would help, and what you might want them to know?
Coming out of a school year?
Yeah.
I think district people generally want data. You know, they want to know because they're the folks that really have to kind of sell it upstream to be able to keep the program going, and they want to know that the program is working. So I think that they want information on kind of how the program, how the model worked throughout the year. Did they see a decrease in absenteeism? Did they see, you know, any positive movement, you know, in academics, sort of the things that I had said before, you know, lower rates of behavioral interventions, you know, kind of the hard numbers is one of the first things that I see. But then I think that they're also concerned about, you know, the school's capacity, like you were talking about. So they want to ensure that the school really has the ability to keep doing it, and that they're comfortable with it and it's not too big of a lift.
Thanks.
Sure.
Any other thoughts on just this district level before we move forward? So then there's the coordinator role, right? And the site-based coordinator capacity very much might depend on a few things. And I've just noted a few, but I've definitely would like to hear from others about additional ones. So the few that I was thinking about when I was thinking about this presentation was strong school and community relationships, because oftentimes the person that is tasked as being the building coordinator may have additional roles. So if they have additional roles other than being the success mentor point of contact, then oftentimes they're relying on those relationships that they built in the past for community members that may be mentors, that may provide activities or resources or support. Then another thing that we're seeing across the country is it's very sporadic which of the building coordinators actually have access to and a seat at the table at school attendance meetings. Time to connect with mentors and mentees, not just when they're coming in the building to mentor or mentee, but maybe opportunities to provide them some ongoing support. So this is the same question again, and it's going to be the same question on a couple of different roles, which is us just brainstorming as we're thinking about how we might put together a don't fade away approach. What might existing building coordinators or brand new ones want to know about this year's implementation that would support a strong opening, and what might you want them to know? And how might that be different? So for example, when we think about the data on attendance behavior and course performance, right? Does anybody have any thoughts about how the views, Letitia mentioned data, Allison mentioned data, Denise mentioned data, how might the data views be different for a coordinator than for the district captain or at the district level? Any thoughts about that?
Hi, this is Denise.
Thanks, Denise.
Hi. So I'm not, for the folks that I've worked with, I don't know that there is a big difference between really what they're looking for. Everybody wants to see movement in a positive direction. I think the difference between the building coordinators, they're generally, in my experience, much more sort of boots on the ground, right? So they are working with the teachers who are serving as mentors or the school staff, and I think have a better, maybe a slightly better understanding just of what the day-to-day really looks like. So I think for the building coordinators, they're looking at things going into the next year, such as do we keep the same kids in the program? You know, if a kid has sort of improved attendance and, is doing really well, do we keep matching them with their mentor going forward next year? They're looking at how are we going to scale it up, because now at this point we've got, say, 10 mentors who have volunteered to do this. But if they're staying with their mentees from last year, how do we now get 10, or 20 or 30 new kids matched? Because those folks that have volunteered are already matched with somebody. So they're I think looking a little bit more at like the kind of day-to-day, the scheduling, the nuts and bolts kind of stuff. And obviously kind of looking at the data on the kids that are coming in, whether it's incoming 9th graders, incoming 5th graders. So they're tracking that kind of stuff. But I think it's more of that daily kind of school coordinating schedules, coordinating, who they have as resources, which the district, I think, doesn't so much have their hands in. Thanks, Denise. So
Sure.
Very much, they
They might be at a who level for a variety of things. And you bring up a very valid idea initially when you talk about, you know, are we going to continue with the students? And that brings us back to the capacity question again, right? Because there's some districts and some buildings we visit where they have more mentors than kids. And then there's other buildings and districts we visit where there's more kids than mentors. So definitely in thinking about your specific site and thinking about what the specific things coordinators in the buildings in your district might be interested in, those who's, and I think the other one that I might offer would be how's. Oftentimes the building coordinators, if they haven't had the opportunity to interact with other building coordinators throughout the course of the year, might not know how other buildings are approaching the model or how they are able to provide some supports to their mentors or what the level of turnover might be. And so definitely their view of what they might like to know and what we might think would be valuable for them to know are going to be a little bit different in this gathering of information. Now let's look at the mentors and the mentees, right? Like let's really look at that level. And at that level, I think we are, I kind of got ahead of myself. We do have some places where we had mentors without mentees, and we did have some places where we had mentees without mentors. And in some cases, the matching process seemed to go really, really well. And in other cases, that was a situation where folks may really want to be gathering some information that would help them to identify how they're doing their match process. So I think it was Denise in the beginning had talked about that interviews for students or interviews with mentors might be one of the strategies that she would use in gathering information. I do want to pause here again, though, and say, is there any information that's on your mind right now that when you're thinking about mentors or mentees that they might want to know or that we might want them to know that would impact the kind of information we're gathering between now and the end of the year? I'm going to go to the next slide because we might have oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So I'm thinking, like, after working with our partners in San Antonio, Texas, I think that they would want to know how to fold the parent component into the community. And that would, oops, that's the next thing, huh?
No, that's so wonderful, right? That's so wonderful because mentors and mentees might want to know, how does this connect to families and communities? So I think it makes sense for us, please continue what you were saying. I think it makes sense for us to continue that conversation, including what they might want to know that might cause them to have a connection.
Right, and it's just extending that to the parents know other parents that they can be then incorporated into that community.
Any additional thoughts about what anybody on the call thinks? What might it be useful for family and community to know to even have, to even know what they want to know about the initiative? Like, again, going around the country, different places, there's different, you know, in some places, the outreach is the letter that parents sign to say their child could be a part of the program. and whomever might attend a family kickoff. And then in other places, there's kind of ongoing dialogue. So any other thoughts about if you were being intentional and if you had 1 million hours available to you, what kinds of information you might be gathering that you think it would be helpful to share with family and community, and that they might want to know and that you might want them to know that would start a strong opening?
Hi, it's Denise. I think anything that we can give to them to give them information for kind of battling the summer slump is useful. I think giving them information on the events that are going to be coming up, you know, right at the beginning of the year, so that they're kind of prepared for anything that's sort of coming right away, you know, as soon as school starts in August or September.
No, so any kind of save the dates or...
Yeah, so that they're kind of prepared for those things. You know, just marketing materials, but, you know, I'm always a little bit cautious with, you know, when I go to talk to schools about this model, about, you know, not inundating parents with stuff, because they're being inundated with probably a lot of stuff from their school anyhow. So, you know, like you said, making things very intentional and, you know, inviting and, you know, just always trying to make a parent feel like they have kind of skin in the game and like it's their school, so that you are very inviting about kind of bringing them back into that. So, you know, marketing materials that I think speak that language to a parent.
Denise, I think you make such a powerful statement in that everybody is inundated with information, including our family and community, and that while we do want to absolutely positively be transparent and welcoming, we don't want to be overwhelming in our communication. So I think that's such a valuable idea. The other thing is, I think that thinking about how do we gain information from family and community in ways that are not taxing, so that we are incorporating their perspective as well. And so I offer this idea. This idea is just an example of Boston Public Schools' way that they put out on both their social media and paper and pencil, anywhere you might be, an open invitation that folks could tweet, folks could put on Facebook, and folks could write pencil and paper in their buildings. You would see they had very neon colors, so it looked very design thinking, neon color responses, where many folks had just written a few words in response to this question: what should future high school graduates know and be able to succeed? And this is kind of a neat, stealable idea for any activities or interactions that might be happening between now and the end of the year, you know, where you could easily tweak the question to be in being thoughtful about what we had just talked about the last few slides. You could craft your question so that it really comes to what you would like to know from a particular audience about what their experience has been like in the Success Mentor program this year. So kind of very easy, free, stealable, short for the end user to fill out, could be used with mentors, mentees, building coordinators, district coordinators, et cetera, to gather information. And then thinking about structures of information that help us to have a strong wrap-up. So focus groups seem like, you know, a lot of times you think focus group, you think marketing and you think branding, but so much powerful information can come, and it can be groups of folks that are in the same role or in vastly different roles that'll give us different information. So considering the opportunity for focus groups between now and the end of the school year or even over the summer, as broad-based as what did we like and what might we change. The wrap-up retreat, just a suggestion that if there is any way in your districts to provide an opportunity for a day or a half a day or 2 hours, whatever you can get, to bring together your building point of contacts in one space. You know, it could be donuts and coffee, whatever, but just to have a structure and setup where everyone can share, I put wows and ows, however you want to frame it, to begin the dialogue about capturing what worked and what do we want to build in and what didn't work and what do we want to try to think about how we could do differently. Many, many, many districts that I have been in communication with are having some kind of mentor-mentee celebration. That could be the ideal place for that question card that we saw on the previous slide, or any kind of stations where people could offer feedback, comment cards, or share stories. But don't discard that it has to be some kind of super multi-tiered professional outreach, that's an opportunity. You can set up any kind of informal stations to get some information back from various perspectives. Of course, surveys or polls, always many districts are using like MailChimp and a variety of SurveyMonkey kind of things. If it is that route, trying to do something where folks can do it on their mobile app, probably going to get a greater response than if it has to be computer-based. And then the other one here, charts and pair interviews, was just to show an example. I mean, charts can just be so simple, right? So you could just have Post-it notes, and then you could just have activities that you had done during your Success Mentor opportunity during the year and just have people, you know, with dots or Post-it notes, mark the ones that they found engaging or they enjoyed or they would like to see happen again. Immediate, easy, relatively close to free, and gives us a lot of information. And that could be true for mentors. We could set it up with any kind of structure, you know, the trainings we had or the topics for professional development we'd like to pursue in next year. Just like that structure would lend itself to any kind of information that after you've reflected on it, you think would be most useful in your particular setting. And I'll just give folks a minute to just read. These are just some ideas of questions. And I would open it up if there are any questions that any of the participants would suggest adding, or that they might have a story that they have asked and gotten useful information about. We certainly would welcome. As I said, these are not the right questions, just some ideas to get us started. Any questions you might add? Okay, so now theoretically, we've suggested a lot of information gathering. What are we going to do with all of that information? And again, I know it's site specific, but thinking again about those levels, there probably has to be some place for kind of district level information, a place for building level information. So thinking about what what might old school legacy folders, whether they're digital or handwritten, look like that we would capture, so it would help us when we're having our planning for next year. Just again, just information that helps us on what worked well, what would we need to rework, and are there volunteers who would like to come back. So absolutely, we do want to be looking at the data, and if our data doesn't show any impact, there may be less things that should fall in the worked well category, but always want to start with our assets. What did people enjoy and what worked well? And someplace, so oftentimes in these kind of programs, the same person is not doing the role 2 years in a row. So having something tangible that people who kind of walk into a new role are able to access, so they don't feel like they are starting from ground zero. And great minds work alike. Any timelines, calendars, or save the dates that could be put together between now and the end of the year, especially ones if you are going to have summer events. Anything that could get out now would be amazing. So things that might be happening you might be considering for over the summer might be summer trainings for mentors, summer trainings for mentees, coordinator retreats or get-togethers for principals. What else comes to mind? Anything that you guys are thinking about that you're planning that might be happening in the summer?
The only thing I can think of to add to this is maybe some community outreach, which you might not have a whole lot of time for during the school year.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah, it can be a good time to, reach out for either garner mentors or, financial support if you're looking for sort of a sponsor for your program. So summer's a good time for that.
And Denise, have you, if not to put you on the spot, and the answer can surely be no, but just so we can learn from you, have you had the opportunity to host any kinds of community events, either Goodwill sponsoring or recruitment of mentors that worked especially well?
No, I'm in year one in several schools in Connecticut right now, so we haven't had a summer yet. Yeah, so these are giving me some ideas of things that we certainly could do. Our mentors, for the most part, are all school staff, so we're not really looking to recruit community members unless it was for sort of a supplemental mentor. If the school staff mentor can't commit to the amount of time that we would need them for. But I really urge the folks that I'm training to really use school staff because they're the folks that can be there. Yeah, so the answer, I guess, is no at this point, but it definitely gives me some thought on what I could be doing over the summer. It's tough, though, sometimes because even principals, they're there a little bit over the summer, but, for the most part, they're not there. So.
It's so true. But I'll share this just because I see it all the time. A couple of donuts or a bag of chips and a giant sub from Subway and scheduled on days when people are maybe having work days, classroom work days. It's just amazing. People just need that space and structure, and it doesn't have to be a long period of time, but just like you were saying about community outreach, a chat and shoe about our success mentoring program that's running parallel to school registration does seem like a really powerful summer opportunity.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So you really gave me a great idea there. Any
I love
other
food.
and food? Food is always good. I think I'm also hungry. Any additional thoughts on timelines or calendars or save the dates? Okay, we have on the website some starting strong checklists. We probably have quite a few starting strong checklists, but thinking about who might be your stakeholders and which of those lists might be valuable for them to have before they wrap up this year, so they too can be thinking about what's the information I really want to have in hand before I start thinking about next year, could be really valuable. So maybe providing those checklists and conference opportunities for next year. And that really kind of brings us to our conclusion. So at this point, it's open for thoughts or questions. Before we open for thoughts or questions, so I really want to thank Denise and Allison and Letitia and Maria, because I appreciate your making our interactive webinar interactive. And with that, we open it up to thoughts or questions.
You guys mentioned at the start that there was going to be a website. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that, where there's going to be resources or?
Absolutely. So I think, and I'm going backwards in the chat, and then I'm going to re-put it in the chat. This is the link where the website is now. I'm going to put it back in the chat so it'll show up again to everybody. What Veronica was sharing was the official National Center at ed.gov has not launched. But all of the materials and previous webinars are available at this link. Can you see it, Denise, in the chat?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
And
I'm on the website now.
I'm also going to ask Dontel if this is possible, if she can send me the emails. I know we had a small group, and I want to email to those folks this slide deck as well as an additional link for additional resources. And then Allison asked about the checklists. I think that I lost my spot. I'm sorry. And Allison, the checklists are on, to the previous slide, where can we find that? And I believe that was the checklist. Those checklists are on the website, but also when I send that email with this website link again, I can also attach the checklist. And let's see, I think I just missed one from Letitia. I am currently trying to get our district to start a mentoring program. I am in the information gap. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. I would just like to thank everybody for joining. I hope you have an amazing rest of your Tuesday, and take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.